The people of medieval Europe called it the Great Pestilence. A terrifying and bewildering sickness from the east which brought delirium and an agonizing death. Fear and hysteria gripped the land, and as the death toll mounted, it became apparent that no one was safe and no one could offer protection. As the sickness raced across Europe, communities struggled simply to bury their dead. And they sought answers, someone to blame, or a means to appease God's wrath. This was the Black Death, the greatest biological disaster in the history of mankind. To those engulfed by the madness and death, it seemed the end of the world. At the dawn of the 14th century, medieval Europe is riding a long streak of prosperity.
Europe has had 3, maybe 4 centuries of really good times. The church has been strong, various kingdoms have been strong, trade has grown, cities have grown, industry has grown, there haven't been any natural catastrophes, weather's been nice, population's been growing. It's really been a nice time for Europe.
But unknowingly, Europe stands on the brink of its greatest crisis. Suddenly, there is a subtle shift in the climate as temperatures fall. Europe's overstretched resources fail. There is famine and war. The Golden Age has ended, and a more dreadful reality confronts the continent.
The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse have come. Famine hits, plague hits, war is all over, and death is all over.
In the 1340s, war ravages the continent. The deepening crisis hits peasants hard, but there were some who thrived on warfare. Edward III has ruled England for 20 years. Now he seeks to enforce his claim on the throne of France and leads an army into Normandy. He wins a spectacular victory at Crécy before wresting control of Calais from his rival, Philip VI of France. Edward controls a sizable portion of France, but his early advantage will only lead to a protracted war.
This is the beginning of the 100 Years' War, and which is really a world war as far as the Europeans are concerned. It involves everywhere: Spain, Germany, Italy, France, England.
King Edward promises his daughter Joan to Pedro, the Prince of Spanish Castile. Like most royal marriages in medieval Europe, it is not a match born out of love, but of diplomatic ambition. For a marriage between the 2 royal families will secure Edward III a powerful ally in his war against the King of France. Barely into her teens, Joan has never met her fiancé, nor has she ever been to Spain. Like any young girl, Joan hopes her father has chosen a handsome prince, perhaps even a kind one. "400 miles to the south, in Avignon, France, Pope Clement VI, God's representative on earth, considers his own prospects. For more than 1,000 years, the Holy Catholic Church has been the center of religious authority in Europe.
The religion of a medieval person was their life. It surrounded them. They thought nothing of going to church every day. Their life consisted a lot of blessings which they attributed to God, and cursings which they kind of attributed to God too, although they blamed it on their sins. So their whole life was enveloped in this religious atmosphere.
But in the 14th century, the Church's moral authority is under attack.
Priests were coming under a lot of criticism for abusing their power. We have lots of examples of priests who had concubines, priests who slept with women in the village, priests who were considered corrupt.
Even the Pope seems tainted. The French have hijacked the papacy, moving it from Rome to Avignon. The break with tradition seems to suit Clement VI, a worldly man who enjoys his opulent lifestyle, but it scandalizes the faithful. Despite the skeptics, Clement's word still carries authority. But will it be enough to sustain his flock when their world comes crashing in?
Questo è un messaggio urgente per il chirurgo. Sì.
The man who will prove to be his most trusted and courageous advisor is his personal physician, Guy de Chauliac.
He's the medical practitioner of great renown. He had been in court medical circles since the reign of Philip the Fair around the turn of the 14th century, and now he is the attending physician, so to speak, of the Pope.
In de Chauliac's world, religion rules science. So entwined are the two that most doctors are also clerics, and the answers to many medical mysteries are thought to lie within theology. But neither his medical texts nor his Bible will prepare de Chauliac for the horror to come. Far to the east, on the Mongolian steppes, something terrible has awakened, an invisible agent of death. Rumors fly that all of humanity is being wiped out in China, India, and the Islamic world.
Interestingly enough, these rumors of origins in the East are accompanied by apocalyptic descriptions of the plague's origins. There were miraculous events that occurred, a rain of frogs, serpents, and so forth. There was a rain of hail and thunder and lightning, and then finally stinking smoke and thunder fell from the heavens.
Before 1347, the Mongols seemed unstoppable. Their dominion over the East has lasted nearly 150 years in an empire stretching from the peaks of Tibet to beyond the Volga River and from Beijing to Constantinople.
Essentially, they opened up trade between Western Europe and China. People could essentially follow routes that went through Central Asia, so that the second half of the 13th century in particular was a time for expansion of European trade toward the East.
But as new opportunities are created for trade, at the same time Europe is opened up to new unforeseen dangers.
We have very valuable goods and cargo such as spices and silk passing along this overland route opened up by the Mongols through their unified empire. But of course, another commodity would have been plague.
Relentlessly, the pestilence creeps across the steppes, wiping out whole villages, the bodies swollen with malignant sores. In this harsh wilderness, nothing goes to waste. Valuable goods like furs and blankets are always salvaged. The rest is torched, an attempt to kill the evil that caused this tragedy. But the unseen demon travels with the loot. In 1347, thousands of miles to the west in the bustling trade city of Geneva, a servant prepares to make a dangerous journey.